Well, hello, good afternoon. I'm really excited to be on here celebrating that my youngest son turned 13 today. And it's amazing because you feel like time just goes every day. You've got so many different things to do as a parent, right? And there's a lot of other responsibilities, etc. Hey, Barb, thanks for being here. And there's so many different things going on in our world right now as well. So being a parent right now, being a human right now is hard. Let's just face it, it's hard because we're dealing with so much change. And when you're parenting, you're also having to take the lead for your children and trying to be that example of how do we respond to life when life throws things at us, turning those lemons into lemonade, and actually maybe sitting and holding on to and being grateful for those lemons, trying to find some gratitude before we actually get to the lemonade making part, because it's not easy. And so today I thought I want to come on and just chat a little bit about what life has been like parenting these two boys of mine and attempting to be a conscious parent. And in so doing, hoping and praying to be raising conscious young men, because they're the people who are going to be going out into our next generations and leading the way. And so with that, it's everything from, how do we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our world? And how do we live our lives, go for our dreams, and still be a blessing to those around us and not destroy the environment around us as well? Like it's such a huge conversation. And I know so many people are on this journey with me as well. And it's interesting to see how many of us may parent differently, but at the end of the day, we love our kids. We want them to be happy. We want them to live lives of meaning, and we want them to be safe. And we want to enjoy time together. That is the hope, right? Enjoying the time that we have been given. And right now, with many people at home with their kids, some of them thrust into home education who didn't choose that. And it's hard. And if you've been following me for a while, I have been home educating my kids the whole way through. This year is the first year that my soon-to-be 15-year-old did school online with 4 other teachers through the Ministry of Ontario online. Loved it. Enjoyed the process, had the challenges too, because like writing essays, not easy. Writing big long tests, not easy. Yet he's thriving through it. And I'm grateful for it. And he's trying to look for those golden nuggets of wisdom and hopefully trying to find some joy through the process. And so for those people who are needing to balance the whole new way of living, working at home and overseeing your kids' education, I just want to know you're doing a great job. You are doing the best you can, and everybody is going to come through this. And the beautiful thing is we get to be together experiencing this at the same time. So many people in many different circumstances, I realize as well. But I do want to encourage you that kids are really resilient. One little story I'll share is through my home education journey. And again, home education, homeschooling, it looks different for everybody. I always call it home education because I always thought homeschool, well, this is our home. The school is a building over there, but education is what happens in your home. And hopefully education happens everywhere. We're learning all the time, right? My biggest thing was wanting to make sure that my kids, just like myself, would want to be lifelong learners, that they would develop a love for learning, for understanding other people, for learning about different cultures, different ways of doing things, different ideologies, so that we can not just be tolerant of other people, but actually interested and loving towards them. Because when we get to know the differences, we can also find similarities. And one similar thing that we have in common is we are all humans, and we have a heart that beats. We have love that flows through our heart for the people we care about. And if we can focus on those things that are similar about ourselves, we can have a much more peaceful, more kind world. That is the hope. And so the little story I was going to share is, if you've been following a podcast or my blog, there have been many different experiences that I've had over the last decade of times where life has thrown us curveballs in our family, in our extended family, and we've dealt with illness in extended family and loss of loved ones. And all through that process, my kids were being schooled or home educated through that. And there were times when I would feel really anxious, wondering, am I going to let my kids down? Are they going to miss something? Are they going to have gaps in their learning? How are they going to be able to keep moving forward? How are we going to do this? And I'm here to tell you, we've come through it. If we had to take a pause or if we had to slow down, they just picked up where we left off and they're doing great. And there are always going to be times in our life where life will throw us those curveballs. We all learned about this past year. And when you develop a community of people around you, a support system of loving kindness around you, whether it's one person, a good friend, a neighbor, somebody, you can find that resilience within yourself to move forward, to take the rest you need and then to move forward. And so what I did was just yesterday, I put out a message to some of my girlfriends online, asking them, if you have teens, I'm really curious. I have 2 questions for you. And so my research question was this, because I wanted to share with you some of what other people are experiencing. And I will answer the questions myself also at the end. But I want for you to know you're not alone. Wherever you're at, there's so many similarities with what they responded. And so the first question I asked basically, if you're raising teenage boys right now, what is your biggest challenge? And what is your greatest joy? And I'm just going to tell you some of the answers. So the first one that came in was from Angie, and she said, my biggest challenge is screen time and gaming and finding ways for my son to not spend all the time in front of the screen. And the biggest joy was the conversations that they were having, the things they were able to discuss and talk about, and the level of understanding that he had and the growth that he has as a person. So you see how you can have both, right? There's the struggles and then there's the things you can find joy in. And the reason why I asked this question in particular is because when we're in the throes of challenge and when we're in the throes of a lot of difference, change, upset in our life, it's easy to focus on the biggest challenges. And we forget about the joys. We forget about those things that actually are good and that are working. So if we can ask ourselves those questions, I invite us to do that so that we can experience more joy with the people that we're spending our time with. And then Lizbeth says, my biggest challenge is to get him off video games and monitor his social media. My biggest joy is the deep conversation punctuated by the occasional, I love you. I'm so blessed. So you see, that top one I think is a common one. I share that at times as well, particularly throughout this season, because typically my boys are incredibly active. So I can just say, yes, video games these days for this short amount of time, great. And then they're busy doing things. But when we're all in a state of stay at home and we've been ordered to do so, it can get more challenging. Get outside into the freezing cold. You can't go anywhere, but stand there. But you can't be on your screen. It kind of feels weird, right? So that is a challenge, the screens and social media. And you know what? I may not have that much of a challenge with the screens because my generation would only watch TV at night. And even though I'm home during the day, I'm never tempted to look at TV during the day. But at nighttime, that would be the time where, hey, maybe I have other things I could be doing. It could be very easy for me to draw into that. But my biggest challenge for me is boundaries around social media, particularly now. I mean, today is a very important day in the US, and you get curious and you look at one post and one post leads to 20 posts, which leads to 30 minutes. And you're like, oh, I wasn't going to spend 30 minutes looking at this. This happens to all of us. So first we want to have grace on ourselves and know that, yes, we have this challenge maybe with our kids, but we also have it with ourselves. So leading by example, if we have really good boundaries with our social media ourselves and our screens, what are some ways we can engage our kids around the house, especially if they're teens? They're more responsible. They want more responsibility. They may not say they want more chores and stuff, but they want to feel involved. They want to feel like I don't know, it's funny. They want to feel respected. And, I think about it. My parents respected me as a teen, but I never would have thought as a parent to say, okay, I need to respect my kids. It just it's not something I was raised with. Like, they did respect me, but that thought almost feels like it's asking too much. Like, but they're just kids. But you know what? They're amazing human beings who are growing and learning. And so if we can give them the respect that we would give our peers and ourselves, then why not? And so involve them in things that are happening around the house. There's always stuff to be done, but then there's also things like having time to sit down and chat and maybe read a book together, or play. My son is teaching me how to play chess, and games are not my most favorite thing in the world. This is something I chose that I'm going to do. I'm going to learn how to play chess. I have to admit, it was a Netflix show, The Queen's Gambit, that got me wanting to do it. She makes it look so alluring and amazing. And so I have had some chess sessions with him, and he enjoys it. He loves to win, but he knows he's going to win because I'm so new at it. So he's happy to give me some pointers. So there's a lot of different things. What could you do? Could you pick up an instrument? Could you play some music together? Like, my youngest son and I like to do that too. Could you, if they like cars, could you get them involved with servicing the car somehow, with washing the car, with checking the oil, with checking the tire pressure? Things that, frankly, I don't really feel like doing, but hey, wouldn't it be nice if we had them helping out? I do those things. My husband does it most of the time, but I think it's great. I know I have a girlfriend who changes her own oil, and I'm like, power, awesome. So there's, these things are not gendered. Somehow they got gendered over the years, but really there's so many different things. Can they help you cook? My youngest loves to cook, and he actually made lunch the other day. He just started. He didn't even ask me because he saw I was in the middle of something and he was hungry. So I'm going to make lunch. Thank you. So get them involved. It is possible. And you can make it fun, not make it feel like a chore, right? But I understand. It can feel like a lot right now. Then Amanda says, this is funny. I agree with this one. Feeding them is exhausting and expensive. My favorite part is watching hilarious movies together with more grown-up humor. We have the same twisted sense of humor. I concur on both of those. Yes, feeding them can be exhausting and expensive. Yeah, like, I'm hungry. And you don't want them just eating out of a box all the time, because they're these critical growth years for teens, any age, teens, any gender. It's very, very important. I mean, really, our nutrition is important lifelong, from the time we're in utero, or actually, if you talk to Dr. Cleopatra, who I'm hoping to have on my podcast soon, she'll tell you your mom's nutrition prior to even getting pregnant is super important all the way through until the end of your life. So there's never any best time to have great nutrition. It's always. And that doesn't mean we be perfect and we're never going to have the odd sugar or whatever. It just means let's make sure we put as much time and effort into eating healthy whole foods. And for this, yes, it can get expensive as a result of that. But also, if we get them involved in the process, then if they're eating really whole, nourishing foods, they tend not to eat as much because the food is actually filling them. So that's something to think about. You can look, whoops, I'm going to drop things. You can look at your farmer's market, your co-ops. You can buy in bulk wherever possible. Whole, healthy grains, smoothies, things that can be really nourishing and filling. So important, making sure they drink enough water as well. And I love the idea about watching things that have a similar kind of humor, because we're experiencing that now too, which is really cool. Our kids never really were interested in the movies that we wanted to watch until recently. And so it opens up for some great laughs, some great conversation. And the cool thing is, the laughs continue long after, and then every now and then they just come up with really funny sayings and little lines from a show that they watch. Like, one we just recently watched was Kim's Convenience, which is a Canadian show out of Toronto, and they just got a new season coming out. And just out of the blue, the kids will just say something from that sitcom. It's fun. And then we've got Jennifer said, I've got two. One is 16, the other just turned 13. Both are boys. Biggest challenge right now is a toss-up between feeding them and getting them to balance physical activity and gaming. The greatest joy is hearing them laugh and seeing them smile. Yeah, that's always the biggest joy, right? So there you go. We've got feeding them and gaming. I think we're all in the same boat on that, unless you don't have a gaming console in your house. And if your kids don't like gaming, like, that's kind of neat. That's kind of cool. Another thing we like to do, we haven't been doing a whole lot lately because our schedule has been actually busier than usual, is reading together as a family, finding a really good book that we all like and sitting down and reading aloud. We would do that. Like, we've done that all through the time since the kids were little. And some of the kids' books we used to read were actually really enjoyable for adult reading too. And so now we're getting into, some books that are a little bit older, but, good, clean, safe, not anything that would keep them up at night either. And it's really fun. One book we're almost finished reading. We've taken our time going through it because we've wanted to digest it. It's called Stamped from the Beginning. And it's by Ibram X. Kendi. And I can put a link to it here. And it's wonderful. It is all about the history of racism in America. And again, raising conscious kids, being aware of this history and these issues, so important. So we can not hopefully make the same mistakes moving forward. And I'm learning so much that I didn't know. Of course, being Canadian is part of it. I don't understand some stuff in the Constitution and all of that. But that has led to us then reading other things about Canadian Indigenous history, our own Black community in Toronto region, like what are they experiencing? And it opens up for wonderful conversation. And then the kids, one thing they do on social media is they follow athletes and things who are activists and wanting to promote more kindness in the world. And then they come to me and start sharing, oh, I saw this today. And what do you think about that? And this is what I think. And so that conversation is so healthy to keep having going on. And then I have Elena, who says, my youngest is to be 13 soon too. My biggest joy is our conversations that go deep. And also my joy is that they are both so open and thriving with their lives. My challenge is to relax into enoughness myself and to give them time to experiment with, for example, screen time. I try to balance it in their life so they'd master it instead of screens dictating their life. It's a lifelong journey, not a point that a mom could take for them. So powerful. I love that, Alina, how you are giving them some freedom to create those boundaries for themselves and like overseeing it and obviously stepping in when required. But yes, that's how they will find out, how do I feel if I'm just sucked right into the vortex of technology? How do I feel after hours and hours? But do I feel good? Do I feel rested? Do I feel scattered? Do I feel overwhelmed? Or do I feel better when I look at it in little snippets and when I have more control over my time? That's amazing. And relaxing into the enoughness of yourself, that's powerful, because as parents, it's very easy for us to look at our lives in our parenting role and say, I'm not doing it well. I made a mistake. I got upset when I shouldn't have. I'm not feeding them well. Dinner was late. The laundry's not done. Like whatever the case, we're very easy again to find out what's not working, what we're not doing well for ourselves. And I think settling into the enoughness that yes, you are enough, and your ability to parent your kids, it's a choice you're making each day, and some days are harder than others, but you're enough right now, and your love is enough for them, and we're all moving forward in the best way we know how. And some days we're going to do better than others, and that's why community is so important, and sticking together with others is so important to be able to check in. The last one I've got here, my young man is 17, Kristen says, greatest challenge is teaching respect with the power and tone of the words that he uses. And the greatest reward is the choice he makes to truly hug me every day. So to actually give her a hug every day, that's so great. But yeah, like learning tone, learning the use of words, learning how to speak with respect. And it can be challenging because someone else had mentioned hormones and they are real. It really, we can think back to when we were teens and try and remember. And sometimes we can think, well, I had no problems. I was great. But really, I remember the power of those hormones that were not giving me the best attitude at times. I was tired at times. I was really hungry at times, and I was confused, not, overwhelmed. And so, yes, helping to model as parents what we are experiencing, if we're experiencing tough times and trying to navigate these circumstances, what's our patience level like? How are we responding? That's the best way we can teach them, is in the moment when we're having a tough time or a good time. How are we responding in kindness? Are we responding in frustration? Hey, yeah, people may not be able to believe, but I get frustrated sometimes and I get defensive sometimes. If I'm tired, if I'm overwhelmed, hey, Amber, nice to see you. I never waved to Barb. There we go. Got all my waving. And so those times where you just, you just are overwhelmed yourself, the kids are watching, the teens are watching. And actually how I know it is sometimes now I might be in the middle of something, and if I get frustrated or if I respond a little off, not as cheery or as neutral as I may like to be, my oldest son will say, Mom, now come on now, think about how you're responding. So my words are coming back at me, which is fabulous. But I'm glad. It makes me realize that they are listening. And it's a beautiful thing to know that your words are not falling on deaf ears. But also knowing that each kid has their own journey to go on and their own experience to go through. And it's not, none of them are going to be the same. And all of our kids are so different. Like my oldest is very competitive. He can be really hard on himself. And so sometimes maybe hard on his brother at times, like in terms of what he expects, not in a mean way, but just like, come on, you should be able to do this or whatever. And the youngest one is, a very free spirit, creative, and very, very observant as well. And so he responds to things differently, but he loves sarcasm. So sometimes the fun sarcasm can turn into something that maybe bothers the older one. And, the competitive spirit of the older one can sometimes affect the younger one. So, right, we do it to each other. We're all so different. Oh, and here's my son joining too. I just finished talking about him. Hi. All good things, right? All truth. And the beauty, though, of having, in my case, two boys who are 2 years apart is they actually still enjoy doing... Oh, his response, he's so funny. Hello, world. They actually can enjoy spending time together, and they have some similar friends, which is nice. And then they also have separate friends that they spend time, when they can spend time with them, they do. They have some separate interests. But what I do love, and this is something when I think about conscious parenting, I think about, there's one little saying that my husband, two sayings actually I'll share, that we've said from the beginning, from the time our kids were really young. The first one is the golden rule. We love our golden rule that Jesus models for us, and that is do to others what you would have them do to you. So treat others the way you want to be treated, right? And don't treat others the way you don't want to be treated. Quite simple, you would think. But we all struggle with that at times, right? Because we're moving from within our minds, and sometimes we say things or do things before really considering it. And that's not just teenagers, that's all of us. If we're hungry, if we're distracted, overwhelmed, angry, upset, we can say things before we really process them in our minds first. So that's a lesson for all of us to learn, really. And the second thing that we always still say, and we've always said, is words are powerful. So the words we say to others and the words we say to ourselves. So as a parent, my husband and I have always been kind of against name calling because, it can be all good fun, but then it escalates and then it turns into something that can really be wounding. And someone may seem, oh, no big deal, I know you're joking. But really inside, we can internalize that. And for me personally, I got a lot of taunting because I had like the big Coke bottle glasses in school, and I was teased and taunted at times. And so that stuff stayed with me for a while, and it did affect my own personal view of myself. So words are powerful. We just said, let's not name call. Let's only call people things that would build them up, or call them by their name. And the other thing too, with words being powerful, never say anything to yourself that you would never say to someone who you wanted to make feel good, right? So be kind and gentle to yourself. And as a parent, the best way we can model that for our kids is let's not say things out loud or hopefully in our head that would be modeled by our kids that are not helpful. So for instance, you make a mistake and you say, oh, I always mess up, or, oh, stupid me, or things like that. Like, ooh, I never talk like that, so it feels weird to say it because I've trained myself over the years. No, I'm not going to say those things. And I'm definitely not going to say them in front of my kids because I want them to learn how to speak kindly to themselves. So one saying that I learned from a Lou Tice seminar many years ago with my husband at the Pacific Institute was, next time I. Those 3 words. You make a mistake, like the time I backed into a tree and knocked off the mirror of my car at the cottage. It was great. Okay, how do we respond, right? Next time, I'm going to move the car over a bit more. I'm going to go out and look and see what clearance I have, right? Next time you don't feel like it in the moment, let me tell you, but it's helpful. And yeah, those times where you forget things, you're late, whatever. Next time, I'm going to give myself more time. This is how we have grace on ourselves. And this is how we allow those things to just pass by as moments in time, and they don't define our day, our week, our year. I never say it's not my day, it's not my year. No, because every moment is a new chance to choose again, right? Like, you can start over again the next second. And so, yeah, sit with the disappointment, sit with the challenge, but then know that you can start again. You can make things different. The minute we buy into, it's not my day, why bother doing anything else the rest of the day? Just crawl back under the covers, because the whole day your mind, your RAS, your reticular activating system up here, it's programmed to look for things to try and prove your point. So you'll look for things that aren't working. Oh, see, it's not my day. So don't say that to yourself. And in doing that, your kids learn to not say that to themselves also. Instead, next time I'm starting over. The rest of the day is going to be better. Things are looking up. There's more than enough time. There's more than enough resources. There's more than enough ideas. There is more than enough money. All of these things. These are little things we can say to ourselves to help us look for the things that are working. And so before we end today, if you're joining and you have anything to share that you want to share about your experience of being a mom to teens, because I know there's a few people on here with teens, one who's having a birthday soon also, please feel free to share. And so today is my youngest's 13th birthday, and in 2 weeks, February 2nd, my oldest turns 15. So I'll be officially celebrating being a mom for 15 years. And it's been a wonderful ride. And I will say, I never did share my greatest challenge of parenting teenage boys. My greatest challenge, I think, is really sitting with the various emotions that they do go through, right? The ups and downs, the trying new things, talking themselves into or out of new things. That's their journey. All I can do is support them through it. So I have to sit with it instead of telling them, do this, do that. You're going to feel this. You're going to feel that. No, asking them, listening, and sitting with what they have to say. That is my biggest challenge, because as moms, as dads, often we can't help but want our kids to have a great experience. We can't help but want them to feel happy all the time. I mean, I want to feel happy all the time. I don't feel happy all the time. It's, yes, my natural set point. I'm typically optimistic, upbeat, happy person. That's just who I am. But I have plenty of times where I'm down on myself, down on circumstances. So we can't expect that our kids are going to be happy all the time. So that's my biggest challenge, is just sitting with what is and allowing them to go on that journey. My biggest joy, so many joys. I am super grateful that I've got to be with them so much in their young lives. Really from the time they were born. I gave birth at home, and then they've been home ever since, pretty much, and traveling with them, seeing them experience new things, seeing the young men that they're becoming. I am incredibly proud of them. And definitely right now, my greatest joy is seeing that their hearts love people and they want everyone to feel safe and loved and respected, who they meet and who they see. That's the message that I get from them, and I'm super grateful for that. So before I go, a couple of books that have helped me, and I will put the names and maybe even links to them in the show notes of where you can get them at your local bookstore. First one is called Hold On to Your Kids. That looks like it's probably backwards. I don't know how to switch the screen. But anyway, Hold On to Your Kids. And it is by, here we go, Gordon Neufeld, PhD, and Gabor Mate, MD. And it's like, Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Need to Matter More Than Peers. Oh, really? Interesting. And it's not what you would expect. Basically, the whole premise, and I mean, I have it, like I underline books. I have tons and tons, probably more near the back because it's more about teens in the back, tons underlined. And it's not that peers aren't important. It's just that having that close-knit relationship with your kids is so important. Like, make sure that you foster it as like from this point forward. Don't think, oh, they're teens, they don't need me anymore. They just need their friends. Their friends are fabulous. They need their friends. However, you want to make sure that your kids trust you and have a connection to you so that you're teaching them those things about life. They're going to be coming to you for the advice on those big things instead of a peer who's just figuring it out themselves, right? That's maybe one example. But if you have that good connection with your kids, they can then enter into relationships with peers being more full and grounded and not maybe requiring the acceptance as much from their peers if they didn't have it at home, right? If they're loved for who they are at home, they don't really need to go anywhere else for acceptance. They can have tons of friends and do lots of fun things, but they are valued and they are safe with their family at home. So that's kind of, it's a launching pad. It gives them the ability to have confidence to go and chase after their dreams and be who they're meant to be, and maybe not just always want to be part of a clique, which can be challenging. That's a whole other conversation. The other book is called The Conscious Parent, and it's by Dr. Shefali, Tsabary, PhD. And I'll just read quickly. She received her doctorate in clinical psychology from Columbia University, New York. Dr. Tsabary was exposed to Eastern mindfulness at an early age in India and integrates its teaching with Western psychology. This blend of East and West allows her to reach a global audience, and her ability to appeal to both a psychologically astute and conscious-driven audience establishes her as one of a kind in the parenting field. And totally agree. I savored this book. I underlined a lot in it too. Yeah, a lot of stuff underlined in that book. And so these two books are really helpful from the time your kids are really young to older as well. And one thing I love about Dr. Shefali is she talks about how, not pushing our kids to just do all of these things and be successful at every single thing they do, but like actually asking them what interests them and supporting their interests, because instead of pressuring them, you're loving them along the way into things that they can enjoy. And yes, sometimes we need to challenge our kids, but this whole performative, you need to be great at everything kind of attitude, it actually can cause kids to shut down. It's too much pressure as well. It really depends on the kid too. Every kid's different, but I love her approach. It is really about, the biggest thing I got from this book, Conscious Parenting, is when we become parents, it's not so much about, I need to be the best parent for them. It's about reparenting ourselves, giving ourselves the love and the graciousness that maybe we didn't get as kids or that we didn't understand, so that we can then be serving our kids as parents from a more full cup. That's my major thing that I got from that. So I'll link these two books. Thanks for being here. Many people will be watching this later on Instagram TV, so thanks for watching, and thanks for celebrating me having my second teen. My youngest is a teenager. It's so cool. And I'm really grateful to be able to go celebrate the rest of the day with both boys and my husband, it's my husband's birthday today too. I don't know if I said that earlier, but my youngest son was born on my husband's birthday. So that is like the best gift I've ever given. And it was a joy. So I'm happy that they get to celebrate it together. So thanks for being here. Have a fantastic day. All the best to you. And I will see you again next week. Take care.